Hello world, welcome to the 90th climate change emergency protest here in Gettysburg, PA. It is August 28th, 2020. Next week's rally will be number 91, and that will be September 4th, 2020. As I said, this is the 90th climate change emergency protest in Gettysburg, Pennsylvania, USA. Tanya is with me today with her face mask on.
Business as usual equals extinction.
So the CO2 level is 412 parts per million, and last year was 409.4 parts per million, so it's up 2.5 points. Usually it's somewhere in there, 2.5, 3 points, 4 points, depending on the day. And the significance of it is that 280 parts per million down to 200 parts per million is actually a stable environment for growing things and having a world that's not changing that much. However, instead of being 200 to 280 parts per million, we're at 412 parts per million. If you factor in methane, we're probably pushing 600-700 parts per million. So it's a very dangerous situation we've entered into. And you can see that with the California fires going on, and 1.4 million acres have burned. And if you put that in terms of square miles, that is 2,200 square miles, which is the size of Delaware, our state of Delaware here in the United States. So all of Delaware basically is burned down if you equate that appropriately. There are 14,000 firefighters fighting the fires, and that, if you divide that into 1.4 million acres, that is approximately 100 acres per firefighter. So it's kind of proof that we are not ready to fight the situation that's coming up, and you don't have the resources to do it. So the obvious answer is to beat it at the fountainhead, not to do it once it happens, and don't be reactive. Well, you need to be reactive, but you want to take on the situation before it occurs. That's the easiest answer. So last week or 2 weeks ago, you had derecho. It's called a derecho wind, and winds were up to 143 miles an hour, which is 230 kilometers per hour in Iowa. And then you have the drought in the southwest, which is severe, as in Colorado, which are also having their own fires. And right now, it's from the entire southwest is under drought, and the west. And if you drew a line also from the west all the way across the United States to Pennsylvania, New York, and entire New England, they're also in a drought. So the United States is well on the way, as projections predicted, to a desertification. You know, everyone thinks everything will be nice and tidy, and America will live through this. But actually, America, I project, will end up being a desert, as will the Amazon, and that'll be known as the Amazon desert. Right now, you had a double hurricane in Louisiana. One hurricane came in, hit. It was a light hurricane, if there is such a thing. And then you had the whammy, which was Hurricane Laura, which was the strongest hurricane to hit Louisiana ever. And it took out a huge amount of structures and killed several people. The reason behind it is because the temperatures in the Gulf of Mexico were 90 degrees, 85 to 90 degrees. So that's a severe brewing element for building up big hurricanes. And it's entirely possible that another hurricane will develop, and it'll be a Category 5 as well. That'll come along and maybe even push, if it goes slow enough. I predict there's one off the charts coming that would be a Category 6, if there is such a thing, which would be absolutely devastating to huge areas. So you have floods going on, you had the Amazon on fire as usual, and you also have the Russian Siberian area, or the taiga, and the permafrost area that is under fire, is having fires as well. The reason behind that has been 100 degrees, and the moisture that's in the soil just has dried up. So you end up with peat fires, forest fires, and just plain old fires everywhere. So you have acidic oceans keep occurring, obviously, because you have CO2 in the atmosphere, and it rains down into the oceans, and it becomes carbonic acid. And also the oceans are heating up. The significance of carbonic acid is that as the oceans become more acidic, they tend to destroy the pteropods, which are shells that animals that have shells on them, and they are destroyed, which is the basic of all feeding life in the oceans. So if you don't have any pteropods, you don't have upper level creatures, and they start dying off as well. Eventually what will happen is the ocean currents will slow up, and it'll become more, the oceans will heat up as well, because there's no distribution of heat throughout the oceans, and you're going to have a severe situation again in the Gulf and off the east coast of the United States. The media doesn't take this seriously as far as reporting what's happening. They did not mention once all these fires that they're having in California, or with the hurricanes, caused by climate change and made more severe by climate change. They are responsible for what's happening, as well are the politicians. They don't take it seriously as well. Trump is a total buffoon, and he's an idiot concerning climate change. He doesn't think it's real. He thinks it's a political issue, and yet all this evidence is contrary to that. So he's not taken seriously, and he really shouldn't be in power. I'm all about 2 parties or 3 parties or 4 or 5 parties, and you need to put someone in charge of the Republican Party that actually knows what they're talking about. This guy, you're following him down the road to hell. And newsflash to everyone: Democrats, Republicans, and Independents will all die equally. The rich might get away with it for an extra month or so, but eventually they will die too. So, you can't keep going down this climate change world and expect to survive it. But who cares? So that's Trump. Now Joe Biden keeps saying it's an existential threat, is climate change, but he moves on to the next thing. It's like some sort of talking point that he just blips out, blathers on, and then moves on to the next thing. If it's an existential threat, then it is a threat that's immediate and apparent, and it's life-threatening. You don't move on to the next subject. That's end of story. That's your talking point for the next hour. Obviously he doesn't know anything about it, doesn't know how to talk about it, doesn't have a clue, as does both parties don't have a clue as to how severe the situation is. And they need to have climate scientists instruct them as to the immediacy as to the problem, and our life-threatening possibility that we all could very well die very soon. So right now the tail is wagging the dog. People are lazy in the United States and around the world. They let their politicians determine policy and where we're headed. They're not educating themselves. They're just unwilling to listen and unwilling to learn. If this is you, maybe you can change your ways and start learning about climate change and the actual severity of what's happening. You need to get in your politicians' faces, all the way from local up to federal, and demand that they do something about climate change. This is an existential threat, meaning it is going to happen, and it is not if, or it's going to be a question of when. And right now, if you ask someone from California or Louisiana, climate change is here right now. So it's costing money, it's costing lives, and eventually it'll cost all life on Earth if we continue on this path. So the choices are, do you want your kids and grandkids to have some sort of full life? And the question now is do you want to have a full life? That's how severe the situation is. I keep saying that by 2023, this is going to become apparent to everyone that you are all involved in climate change, and no one is escaping this issue. And by then, it'll be too late to affect anything. And it's probably too late now, but you need to do something and identify the problem and move on immediately in order to tackle this issue. And this ain't no clowning around. This isn't a political issue. This is scientific fact. And people better wake up to what's happening, and the media better wake up. You see a news reporter, ask them why they're not reporting about climate change. You get on social media, ask the news why they're not reporting about climate change. So again, 2023, we all start seeing this severe devastation, even though some of us are already seeing it. And that doesn't mean on 2023 it's going to happen right on that date. It's going to keep amping up, getting worse and worse. And by 2026, we're all going to have trouble surviving. So I really suggest everyone educate themselves. You look at our website, Jim McHenry, and go down through that website, and you can read tons of articles. Environmental Coffee House on Facebook and YouTube is also very good. Extinction Rebellion is very good on YouTube. Those people in there. There's Gail Bradbrook, Rupert Reed, Allison Green. They're pretty good. Roger Hallam was part of Extinction Rebellion. He's independent now. And he is most excellent as a college professor, and you look up his talks, especially one from 2 years ago and a most recent one he had in front of college classes, and he's really, really good. That's Roger Hallam. You have Peter Wadhams, Paul Beckwith. I recommend you look them up on YouTube, as well as on Facebook. I recommend you look up Sam Carena, that's Carena, and also Patrick McNulty. So the next protest will be talk number 91. That'll be on September 4th. That'll be our protest. And if the question is, if you aren't going to do this now, when will you do it? And when will you take action? And if not you, who will do it? So, this is all on you now at this point. And I don't see anyone out here other than my wife, and the cars keep rolling along and we're keep trucking along. And I recommend you make America green again, or make Europe green again, or make Africa green again. Start planting trees. That's not the sole answer, but is one of the many answers that we need to do. Dig up your lawn, stop mowing every week. See you later. Bye.